Hey Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And welcome to episode 375.
Yeah.
Hey you lot, I hope you're keeping well and safe. We hope you've had a cracking week and that you've all managed to do something Doctor Who related. Indeed.
Yes. Nice and in sync there.
We were in sync, weren't we? That was good, that one.
For once.
Yeah. Welcome to 375. It's been a quiet week, this one, dude. We have no news really to talk about. It seems to be people are busy with other things. The Doctor Who team are busy in production at the moment on the new stuff. We've got Russell, who's also busy but promoting something else, not Doctor Who. Russell. We have no news on any upcoming Blu-ray box sets at the moment, post the one that's due out soon. We don't have any BFI screenings yet to talk about. Nothing going on, dude, really.
No,
Quiet.
I know Russell's been on a few TV shows, but he's been promoting Nolly, hasn't he? He's been talking about Nolly. Although all the interviewers always sneak in a Doctor Who question, I've noticed. They always get one in just to try and get some secrets out of him. There was a nice one of him chatting to Lorraine Kelly the other day, because she's a big Doctor Who fan, isn't she? And you can just tell that she just wanted to get Nolly out of the way so she could talk about Doctor Who.
Yeah, do you remember that Lorraine Kelly interview that, with Chris Eccleston last year or the year before?
Yeah. Oh, well, when he said I would never do conventions. Yeah.
Yeah, that was...
a few years ago, that was.
That was, wasn't it? Yeah, and everybody lost their beep when the... Because I think everybody... When I say everybody, I mean like some Doctor Who YouTubers and blogs and whatnot. They went really clickbaity with it. So they were like, is Chris Eccleston coming back to TV and all this stuff? And it was it was just the interview, wasn't it, where Lorraine Kelly, she was like massively grinning the whole time, and she's like, so coming back to TV, when's it going to happen? And you know, we got the famous line like, I will never come back to TV, but I am doing Doctor Who in audio form.
Oh, that's right.
With Big Finish. He sort of caveated every single response with, it's only audio though with Big Finish. Yeah. He made it very, very crystal clear that the prospect of him coming back to do any Doctor Who on the telly box was out of the question. Yeah, so what a time that was, though. I remember all those articles popping up about, is Chris Eccleston coming back? And I was like, God.
If I remember right, was he in his car or something?
He was, yeah, in a car park.
Interview, he's doing it in a car park.
You make the most of what you've got, bud.
Exactly. Yeah, it's probably the Big Finish car park. Yeah.
It probably was. I think it was actually, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Wowzers.
Remember that.
So we have nothing of substance to talk about, I'm afraid, dear Doctor Who Big Blue Box listener. But why not just go back and check out the old back catalogue? Go back to any episode you've missed. So this is 375. What did we kick the new year off with? I think that was, I don't know.
I can't remember.
What was that? Yeah, whatever January's was. January the 6th, we did the Ark in Space, which was very cool.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah, so if this is the first time that you are listening to the Big Blue Box, then welcome aboard. It's awesome to have you on aboard the TARDIS listening to us waffle about Doctor Who. And of course, if you're one of the grizzled ancients, one of the long-time listeners, then welcome back as well. It's good to have you here. So this week's review, talking of grizzled ancients, if you've listened for a while, you will know that we are crashing through all of Classic Who right now because we've pretty much done everything else. So, Torchwood, done. Sarah Jane Adventures, done. Most of Doctor Who from 2005, done, bar a couple of Christmas specials. Not sure when we're going to get round to those. Maybe we'll save them for December this year. So, anyway, we've got loads of Classic Who to get through. This week, it's the turn of the First Doctor, and it's the Reign of Terror.
Yes.
Yes, indeedy. Before we get onto that, though, have you done anything Doctor Who related, dude? You've read through the latest magazine or anything?
No, I haven't really done anything Doctor Who related unusually this week. I had a friend stay over the weekend who I've known for years, one of my oldest friends, and she's a massive Buffy fan, and I just happened to mention that I'd never watched it, and that was it. Fired up the old Disney Plus, and we spent the next, pretty much the whole weekend watching Buffy. And it was, I must admit, I quite like it. I don't know if I had any choice. I felt like if I dared say after like 2 episodes, nah, this isn't really for me, I might have, the friendship of 30 years may have ended on the spot, but no, thankfully I was enjoying it. So I've been mainly watching Buffy, I'm afraid. No time for Doctor Who. And then obviously Reign of Terror, which is a big old 6-parter with two episodes in animation. So yes, got that under the belt. And I did watch the little making of documentary on the DVD for this one, because I remembered that there was quite a troubled production, and I wanted to remind myself of all the little things that happened while making the story, and it was definitely entertaining little behind the scenes. So yeah, I watched that, but I haven't really done anything else. I saw a couple of filming pics. I saw the TARDIS on bricks, which I thought was quite interesting. So there's a photo floating around of the TARDIS. This is not a spoiler, by the way. It's just, I think they've just raised the TARDIS up so it looks like it's on the pavement, but it's quite funny. It looks like one of those cars when it's had its tyres nicked and it's just on bricks.
On bricks, yeah.
So, yeah. And I saw Millie running towards it and stuff. Nothing major, but it's just, a few filming bits out there. But no, Doctor Who was, mate, haven't really done anything. I've seen Russell on a few things, and that's about it, really. Yeah. Not a bit of a quiet week, really.
Same for me, dude. Exactly the same. Yeah, it's been overshadowed by other stuff to watch, as is sometimes the case. So I've been watching The Last of Us, if anyone's seen that.
I did watch episode 1 of that.
Oh, mate, what a show that is.
Wow, episode 1 was amazing. I'm a bit behind everyone else. Everyone keeps telling me how good it is, and that was something else I thought I needed to start. Along with 7 seasons of Buffy, I managed to get an episode of that under my belt. And I don't know, are you on the latest episode, or how far have you got?
I'm not. So I think the latest one here in the UK is episode 4.
4, isn't it?
Yeah, and episode 5's dropping this Sunday, I think, or Friday or Sunday. So I'm up to episode 3. So I've got episode 4 ready to watch. So I'm going to watch that at some point. But yeah, it's a very good show. And episode 3 is a very heartbreaking story, dude. I'm not going to give anything away, but
oh no,
it's one of those. Sometimes within certain TV shows they do these little isolated stories almost that concentrate on some other characters and stuff. Well, episode 3 was like that for The Last of Us, mate. And honestly, it's a beautifully written piece of TV, and so I think anyone that sort of likes a sort of emotional drama and stuff, I think we'll like episode 3 if you've not seen it yet. So, The Last of Us, been checking that out. And also I've started I think I do this every year or every 2 years. I don't know. I start watching the X-Files again.
Oh, you're doing an X-Files loop?
Yeah. So that's running alongside my Classic Who rewatch at the moment. So I just haven't watched any Classic Who this week. So far, at least. Yeah. So all quiet on the Gallifreyan front in terms of what we've been up to. Yeah.
It does seem like it. Yeah, now Nolly's out of the way, perhaps Russell can get back to talking about Doctor Who. Get back on the Doctor Who set, Russell. Actually, I did watch Nolly. I don't know if you've watched it yet.
No. Any good?
I watched it on. It was good. Yeah, very, very enjoyable. It's 3 episodes. I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure if it needed to be 3. I think they could have easily made it a 2-parter or even a 90-minute drama. But it was very enjoyable. Yeah, and I think people of a certain age, it's quite nostalgic having they've recreated the old Crossroads sets and stuff, and Helena Bonham Carter is fantastic in it. She's really good. I'm a big Larry Grayson fan. I absolutely love Larry Grayson, and Mark Gatiss plays Larry Grayson in it. It's fun. It's got Russell written all over it. I mean, everything from the production to the dialogue, and it just screams RTD from the minute it starts. Just very enjoyable, very easy watching. I did get that watched. The only thing is I watched it on ITVX, this new streaming thing. It could be my internet, but my God, it was like, it cracked up every time it went to an advert break. because they sort of insert the adverts in, don't they, when you watch it on streaming, but it's like a separate thing, if you know what I mean. So every time it tried to cut to the adverts, it seemed to freeze, and then every time it tried to cut back from the adverts to the program, it froze for like what felt forever. And yeah, I was getting a bit, I was just like, just play. just want to watch it. But that could be my internet being a bit rubbish, I don't know.
Just do it.
Just play. I was just like, come on. Yeah, it's a bit like, pulling teeth at sometimes.
Do you know what? I was thinking the other day about, this is the highlight of my week, obviously. I was thinking about ITVX the other day.
Right, and, just randomly.
Yeah, I've joined the dots, or I've put 2 and 2 together, and I think I've come up with 18. Where, you know, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago about Russell being interviewed about stuff and asking about Doctor Who, etc., and he was quite enthusiastic about getting all of classic Doctor Who onto iPlayer.
Yes, I remember. Yeah,
so that iPlayer is the home of Doctor Who. There was something that went down, wasn't there, a few weeks before that? We didn't speak about it on this podcast because it wasn't Doctor Who related, you know, or specific, but there's something going on with some of the streaming licenses or content licenses on BritBox because of ITVX launching. I think one of our Discord peeps put it in there about, am I cool to subscribe to BritBox because I've just heard that ITVX are pulling their content out of it, and is that going to affect the service and stuff like that? I think there could be something in that, you know, with Doctor Who moving away from BritBox, because I'm under because I'm under no illusion that there's contracts in place with BritBox and Doctor Who, and that has to run its course, of course. But I think at some point with ITV, it looks like anyway that they're slowly pulling out of BritBox because they want to focus on their own streaming service, which is the new ITVX thing. Really, all that leaves on BritBox then is Channel 4 and BBC content. Now, those two things, they don't really seem like sort of the best of bedfellows, if you know what I mean. Like, Channel 4's content offering has always been very, I don't know, more edgier, I guess, more, I don't know. And the BBC have already got an established thing there. They've already got iPlayer there, haven't they, to do all that, all their own content. So I wouldn't be surprised, dude, within the next year or two, maybe 3 years, that BritBox shuts down, ITVX has its own thing, Channel 4 sticks with its own thing, because Channel 4 already has its own catch-up streaming service.
True.
And then iPlayer just takes control of all of its BBC content and houses Doctor Who and everything. So that was my shower thought for the week.
I can totally see that happening, though.
Yeah.
Totally see that happening. It's really annoying when stuff disappears as well. You know, just like you could be watching a series and then go to watch the next episode and it's gone. That happened with George Gently. No, not George Gently. I always say that. The Douglas Adams.
Hitchhiker's Guide.
No, he did a detective series starring Stephen Langdon.
Yes.
George. I can't think of anything other than George Gently now, but it's not George Gently. That's a totally different detective. Anyway, that was on there, and they only made 3 of them, and I think it was either the late 90s or early 2000, and you know, that typical Douglas Adams humour, and Stephen Langdon is great in it.
Dirk Gently.
Is it Dirk Gently? Yes, yeah. Yeah, and I watched the first 2 and thought, these are great. I've never seen these before. Brilliant. And I went to watch the third one. Gone. Disappeared within a week. I was like, oh no. Because you can't find that anywhere, I don't think, that series.
I don't think so, mate. No, not online.
Does it say what year it is? I'm just trying, because Stephen Langdon obviously looks quite, you know, a bit younger.
I don't know the year, but it was in the 80s. I think it was like mid to late 80s somewhere.
Oh, was it 80s? Oh, right, okay.
I think so, yeah. I remember it being an old 80s thing. What's the full title of it? It was something like Dirk Gently's something agency.
Was it sort of like historical? I can't remember now.
Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency.
That's it.
That rings a bell. That's the one, isn't it? Yeah, that rings a bell. I don't know when it was out there. I think it was in the 80s, but yeah, that was a cracking series though. Yeah,
well, I only got to see the first 2, but yes, it was good. But that's just a prime example. Yeah, it just gone the next time I signed in to watch it, which is gutting. That's why I still buy physical media, mate.
That's why you buy it.
So it can just rot on the shelf.
Yeah. Actually, saying that came in handy with you, didn't it, a few weeks ago? So I think it was 3 weeks ago, 3 eps ago, that we spoke about one of the composers on something was doing the score for what was it, the Seeds of Doom, whoever the composer was for that.
Yeah,
they did the score.
Jeffrey Babylon, I can't remember his name.
You know who I mean.
Yeah.
He did the score for the old Chronicles of Narnia BBC thing, and you digged your old DVD out, mate.
I did. Yeah, I did, and it's got them all in there as well. I did, because it's like a proper box set. I was thinking I just got The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I dug the old box set out, and it's got Silverchair and all the others in there, and I was like, oh, great. So I watched 3 episodes of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which were, like you said, just magical actually, because it's such a different time in every sense. Like the acting, the music, the way it's shot, there's just charm to it. Like it's such a charm. Like the people in the costumes, they're so basic, but it's so great in a way. But yeah, I need to carry on with that because I was really enjoying it. But I only watched the first 3 so far. But but I've got a whole box set of it.
Nice.
Yeah, which is nice. And
you wouldn't have been able to have watched it because that's not on any streaming service.
See, that does surprise me because there is a time that was kind of everywhere. It is regarded as an absolute classic, isn't it? Children's classic. So I'm surprised that's not on somewhere.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not on BritBox because BritBox seems to be the place where they have all of the old stuff, all the old BBC content from the 60s through to probably the mid-90s. It seems to be the place to go. But it's not on there, and it's not on iPlayer, so...
I'm very surprised about that, to be honest with you.
Maybe we should send a very strongly worded email to the BBC.
Maybe we should.
I don't know who at the BBC, but...
No.
Or maybe we've got old school. Write a letter.
Can you send him a fax?
Could do. Yeah.
I'm thinking back to Caroline Ford when she was like, tell them you want me to come back. And I was like, yes, I will. Don't know who I'm telling.
Yeah, who are we going to tell?
I'm just shouting to the sky, BBC.
Yeah, just rock up.
Bring her back.
Oh, I just had a sad moment then.
Why?
I was going to say, we'll just rock up at BBC Television Centre, but that's flats now, isn't it? It's
flats and cafes.
Apartments and everything. So we'll have to find the new office. Yeah. Did they keep the little white dots on the side of the building? Because that was a listed thing, wasn't it?
Oh, what, the 3 black square, 3 white squares?
No, it was like a load of white dots that used to be underneath the BBC logo.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking. I don't know if they've kept them, actually. I've got a feeling they're there, but without the BBC obviously above them.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I'm just looking at an image of it now. Oh, God. Oh, no.
Thank goodness it'll be forever preserved on An Adventure in Space and Time.
Oh, God.
The documentary, because they got some beautiful shots of it then, didn't they?
Yeah. But I think all the white pegs or the white dots are still there, so that's all.
They're still there, are they?
Yeah. I think there's something to do with that wall or that building. It's all listed because of its historic importance and whatnot. But now it just looks like, your everyday London development. Okay, I read you.
Such an iconic building that. I mean, remember Blue Peter and every sort of, program back in the day. They'd always film outside Television Centre, and it's iconic, isn't it? Photo shoots for new Doctor Who companions would always be taken in that little circle bit in the middle. It's so much history and memories there. Yeah,
memories. We're like two miserable old sods. It's like, oh, I remember that. Yeah, do you remember the Doctor Who experience in Cardiff? Oh, that was back in the day. That was brilliant when it's not there anymore.
God, yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure we'll have something. There was talk, wasn't there? We'll get on in a minute, but there was talk, wasn't there, of something happening somewhere in London to replace the Doctor Who experience. There was some chit-chats around that.
There was still a theme park at one point. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, the theme park.
Years ago. What happened to the theme park?
Well, rightly so. They canned it off before they even started building it because it'd be ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah, hold on. Whoa. With old Disney involved now, we could see a Doctor Who... a Doctor Who area in one of the Disneylands, because they do that the last, 20 years, haven't they? They have different parts of the theme park. You've got like the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. That's its own thing within Disney World, and or is it Orlando, whatever it is. So yeah, we might see a Doctor Who part of the, you know, like Galaxy's Edge within Disneyland or Disney World in Florida. We might see a whole Doctor Who world. Might be they might build Gallifrey in Disney World.
I'll tell you what, that could be fantastic, couldn't it? Imagine that if Disney do a Doctor Who theme park, you know, bit of their park, like they have done with Star Wars. Be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be.
You could have the whole Gallifrey Citadel in the middle, and jump in the TARDIS and go for a 3D ride. Amazing.
That'd be awesome, dude. Wow.
Probably be a little bit better than... Do you remember in the Doctor Who experience when you walked onto the TARDIS console and then it was supposed to take off and it kind of shook a little bit? But it was the most feeble shake ever. It kind of just slightly rattled under your feet. I think it was supposed to move a lot more. I don't know what happened. So, they could probably improve on that, yeah.
Indeedy. Oh, mate. We'll pitch that to them as well. When we complain about streaming, we'll also pitch the... this idea of a multi-billion-pound investment in Disney World.
Exactly. Have a word with Russell. He hasn't got much going on. Just have a word with Russell.
Yeah. So, Russell, it's nice to see you,
on your
buddy.
List.
Yeah, nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. Oh, thank you. I've just been promoting my new show. No. Why about that? Right. That's old news already. Right. Back to Doctor Who. Right. We're going to crack on with our review, because we're waffling now. Before we go on with that, though, remember to subscribe or follow to this podcast in wherever you get your podcasts. That way you won't miss an episode when it lands every single Friday. You can also listen for free over on the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. And you can also read the reviews and articles from our amazing writing team. We're also on the socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Mastodon. There are links on the website. Come and give us a like and a follow over there, because we chat Doctor Who throughout the week, and we have a very cool free Discord server. So again, links on the website. Come and jump in there. Very, very cool community of Who fans. So come and check out the Discord server. While you're doing all that stuff, before or after, take your pick, don't forget to remember to check out Adam's channel over on YouTube. It is, of course, The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag, yes. I got a mammoth 22-minute video on the way, and I'll tell you what, I'm pleased with this one. So it's a mammoth vlog of me trying to track down the last wave of B&M sets, and it's almost finished. I'm just adding some music to it, and it should be out soon. And I'm very, very proud of this vlog. So that's on the way. Go and check out my YouTube channel. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I've still got that one video on TikTok, although apparently it's I don't know, reading all the information on my phone, so I'm going to probably delete that soon. Oh, okay. Apparently TikTok's bad.
TikTok's very bad, apparently. Yep.
So yeah, that might have to go. But I'm on all the other socials, so go and find me on there.
Yes, go and check out Adam on the other socials, and because we all chat throughout the week in between episodes, and post little tidbits and talk about other bits and pieces. So yeah, come and get involved. It's all good. Okie dokie. Review time, bud. What we doing?
Right then, citizen. Settle down, because this week we'll be reviewing the first Doctor adventure, The Reign of Terror.
There we are, home.
I say, do you think we really are home?
I don't know.
We've lost our way and we need your help. This is England, isn't it? No, France. I'm certain we're sometime in the past.
Here, look at this.
This is signed by Robespierre.
The doctors put us down right in the middle of the French Revolution.
The Reign of Terror.
I am satisfied as to your guilt.
Don't move.
Being in the company of wanted traitors.
In France now there are only two sides. You're either with us or against us.
I can't decide whether you're a rogue or a half-wit or both.
How long has he been dead?
Take him! You'll listen to me!
I asked how long he's been dead.
The sentence, immediate execution.
The events will happen just as they're written. We can't stem the tide.
Dispatch for the guillotines.
For the guillotine.
The guillotine.
Not the guillotine, the guillotine.
Guillotine.
Must pronounce that correctly.
Indeed.
Yes. Okie dokie. The Reign of Terror then. So this is a six-parter. The first part went out on the 8th of August 1964, and the final part went out on the 12th of September of the same year. It was written by Dennis Spooner, directed by Henrik Hirsch, and overseen by David Whittaker. Stars William Hartnell as the Doctor, and then we have the early TARDIS crew with this one. So William Russell, as Ian, Jacqueline Hill as Barbara, and Carol Ann Ford as Susan. And the synopsis is, the TARDIS materialises not far from Paris in 1794, one of the bloodiest years following the French Revolution of 1789. The travellers become involved with an escape chain, rescuing prisoners from the guillotine, and get caught up in the machinations of an English undercover spy, James Sterling, alias Lemaitre, governor of the consigliere prison. However you say that word.
I think that's how Hartnell said it in the episode, actually. Just like that.
Yeah, took a couple of goes as well, didn't he? Right. The Reign of Terror, dude. What about this one, though? Because it's an interesting one, isn't it, right? Because it's a 6-parter, but 2 of them are missing. So did you watch the Telesnaps reconstruction, or did you watch the animated versions?
Oh, no, I watched the animated. I didn't even realise the Telesnaps were on there. It just naturally played the animation when I put it on. So, yeah, I would have watched that over Telesnaps anyway. The Reign of Terror, mate. Just listening to that trailer reminded me how much I enjoyed the first episode. Those first 10 minutes are just brilliant, where the Doctor's getting all huffy and puffy because Barbara and Ian want to leave. And he's like, off you go then. I just loved it. I just loved those first 10 minutes, and then they realise he's like so convinced he's got them back home, and of course he can't control the TARDIS, so they're actually in France, and then he has to admit he's in the wrong place, and not too bad, he says, just a little bit off, not too bad, not realising they're in completely the wrong year and everything's wrong. And this is what I love about Hartnell too. This excitement that he can't really control the TARDIS is brilliant, and I just thought how fun those first 10 minutes were, and how the cast just bring that scene to life, and loved it. So as a story though, overall I think it's a good historical. I think it's a fairly decent 6-parter. I said to you before we kicked off though, it did lose me along the way a little bit in terms of my interest. I found myself getting a bit zoning out a bit, especially towards episode 5. It's weird because the animation in some ways helped, I think, to make this story more watchable, in the sense that I think that I was getting a bit bored in the middle. So I loved the start, loved episode 1, thought it was brilliant. Was kind of getting into it for episodes 2 and 3, like all the sort of walking through France, and the bit where the Doctor clubs some guy over the head. I was just like, what the hell? And there was some nice moments, but I was starting to get a little bit bored by the middle of it. And then the animation kind of broke that up in a way, so it sort of helped it a little bit. And I will get on to my thoughts of the animation once I get your initial thoughts and we get into some other stuff. But yeah, I think the story tailed off a bit for me. I think being 6 episodes, it just didn't. It did drag a bit. I mean, it's that old saying of it would have been a great 4-parter. I think 6 was a bit too much for me, but by the time I did finish it, I thought it was some really nice moments. I think Hartnell is absolutely brilliant in it. Absolutely brilliant. He gets some really nice moments, especially the bit towards the end where he has to dress up as I don't know what he's supposed to be, in the big hat and the ribbon and stuff. He gets some really, bit, that, isn't it? Yeah. He gets some really great moments in it, and he relishes in those scenes. And he's still on very good form. There's the old fluff, obviously, but there's some great Hartnell moments in this, and it really added to the story, I think. So, yeah, overall, I think it's decent. I think it's a good historical, but I can't lie, there were times when I was just zoning out, getting a bit bored, and then I would sort of snap back into the story, and suddenly Barbara and Susan would be in a different costume or place, and I'd be thinking, oh, what have I missed? But, so yeah, I did zone out a bit during some of it, I have to be honest. But yes, overall it was good though, a good historical, I think, and I know absolutely nout about the French Revolution, I'll be honest with you, so it kind of introduced me to a few things, even though they may be factually not 100% correct. I think Dennis Spooner took a bit of artistic license, but it just, told me a thing or two, which is nice. Taught me a thing or two, if you like. So, yeah, it's a good historical, I would say. Just too long, of course, being 6 parts. I think that's probably a given. Yeah,
I think so, mate. Yeah. Okay. First of all, yes, I absolutely agree. This could have been a 4-parter. We seem to say that a relatively regular, reasonable amount of times, don't we, with these 6-parters? And in some ways, it's we do fall foul of the whole binge watch approach to this, rather than the watching it as it was intended to be viewed, which is a weekly thing, where it's kind of that what's the word? It's like a serial drama, I suppose. It wasn't, most of, if not all of classic Doctor Who wasn't designed to be sat down and binge watched over a couple of hours. Do you know what I mean? It's just
exactly.
Not. So we do have to. I think I have to remind myself of that more often than not. So I watched this as 3, 2, and then 1. So I watched the first 3.
Oh, right.
Then I watched the 2 animated ones. Then I watched the last part last night, actually. And I think I agree with you on the animated thing. And it did make it a little bit easier to get through, especially narratively, how the story sort of progressed in the latter half. And I think the main reason for that is because the picture quality is so bad on all the other parts. It's really like watching I don't know, it's like there's classic Who in black and white, which can look really, really good. Even some of the old Hartnell episodes can look, if they've got a decent master that they've recovered or they've not been trashed, they can look really good. What's like the War Machines, that's got some amazing, nice, crisp looking videos and stuff, sort of picture quality and stuff. Whereas this one, because all of the master tapes were wiped and then the tele-recording prints that they were saved, they were binned, not even wiped. They were just trashed by the BBC in the early 70s. Yeah. So I think there was a private collector that handed over the 6th episode. And then they found all the other ones. They found the first 3 in another country. And the other 2, parts 4 and 5, are still missing. So they had to animate those. But even so, they just look awful, mate. So it's really difficult to sort of maintain your kind of concentration almost, because you're trying to sort of deal with especially the audio as well. The audio's really really tinny.
Yeah, it is tinny,
yeah. So I don't know. It's just a bit of a rough watch to get through the live action episodes. And so because of that, you kind of think, well, I do anyway. After I've watched this one, I'm like, oh, this is only the second time for me as well, watching this story. And as soon as I finished episode 1, I remembered back to the first time I watched it and thinking, crikey, the story is very cool. And like you said, Hartnell's on fire in some scenes. He's very cool.
Yeah.
But just overall, it's like, oh, this is a real sort of grind to watch through, just because it's so bad. Like there's a couple of scenes where you can't even tell that they're on a set anywhere, because the edges of the picture have got this really big faded grainy vignette thing going on where it's all dark around the corners and the edge, and it looks like they're just standing in front of a black curtain for a lot of it, and you just think, Christ, what's going on here, sort of thing. But I think overall it's a fairly decent watch. It's not terrible by any means. It's just crying out for somebody somewhere to hand in some decent quality, prints of this, and it needs a remaster, of course. But it's not terrible. And do you know what? I think this is one of the only few stories for me where I wasn't too blown away with Ian and Barbara and Susan.
Well, no, I mean, Susan's sick for most of it, isn't she?
Yeah.
She gets kind of written out of it almost. Yeah.
Yeah, and Barbara's okay. But the way she was written, she was, in this one, I know it's of its time, but she was written as a bit of a damsel in distress. And then, the charming, handsome rescuer, she has eyes for him a little bit. It's all very cliched kind of female assistant kind of character. And then Ian is doesn't really do a massive great deal. We have a bit of evade, capture and evade, and he's trying to get out of his cell and all the rest of it, but he just doesn't have a massive to do. So it's one of those few stories where, for me, the Doctor really does when he's on screen, run with it and does his thing. So it's a strange one, this one. It's for me, it's a strange watch because of all those things. But also, it's normally we find Ian and Barbara to be just like amazing in most of their stories and almost outshining the Doctor in some places, and stuff like that. But for me, it was almost the opposite on this one. I found that Hartnell was just really, really into it and very cool. And the other one, yeah. So, what do you think to the story then? Because it's obviously an historical, and it's set during the, as Barbara tells us very clearly, the Reign of Terror.
She actually says the title.
Yeah, so she sets us up. It's the French Revolution and all that stuff. So it has got one of those very nice historical things going on. However, it does play with that a bit loosely with in terms of certain characters. I remember researching this early on in the week, and the reception that it got mainly from viewers was very good. Really enjoyed the story, liked the character development with some of the people who are on either side of the revolution and how that plays out throughout the story. But then the critical response was most of the critics, they were sort of a bit harsh on the accuracy of the historical side of it. So yeah, I think they were concerned that because a lot of children obviously watched Doctor Who, that they were being misinformed about what actually happened during the French Revolution during this time and what we see the Doctor getting up to and so on. So I don't really buy into that too much. I think that's a little bit of woke stuff going on there, even back in this early time. But anyway, what did you think to the story and this being a historical, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I wouldn't have known if there was any historical accuracies because I don't really know much about this, this time period at all anyway. So I kind of just went with it. I think it makes a really interesting place for the TARDIS team to land. It's quite an interesting setting, and I like the fact it's based in fact, even if the facts are slightly obscured, if you like. But it's nice to see. I agree with you about the TARDIS team, though. I mean, it's nice to see the Doctor pushed to the forefront of the story, because obviously the first Doctor, although he's the lead, quite often Ian gets to do all the sort of punch ups and chasing, and for obvious reasons. So it's nice to see the Doctor getting pushed to the forefront a bit more. But yeah, the downside of that is that the rest of them don't really get a lot to do other than be captured and put in a cell, and poor old Susan gets sick and spends a good sort of part of the story ill, just sort of being flopped around in a chair and stuff. And so they don't really get a particularly good story, I suppose. In that sense, they don't particularly get a lot to do. And you're right about Barbara, because I absolutely love Barbara, and I like it when we see strong Barbara just standing up for herself. And and in this one, she is written to be a little bit on the weaker side. I mean, she does get the odd good moment, but it's a bit like when the jailer tries it on with her, and she's quite timid about it, rather than just giving him a good old elbow in the ribs and saying get off. It's I do agree with you about that, but overall I think the story is good, and I like the setting, and I like the fact it's historical in that sense, that it is trying to teach us about this time and what was going on in France, even if it may not be factually 100% correct. But because I don't know much about it anyway, that's I wasn't sat there thinking, wow, now come on, that's wrong, and that never happened, and who's this, and it didn't matter to me because I don't know anything about it anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I liked the setting. I really did. Thought it was quite an interesting, and obviously it gives the Doctor it gives him the opportunity to get into that interesting costume or outfit at the end. And like you said, that's become quite an iconic look. You see lots of photos of Hartnell in that big hat and the big whatever the thing is across his chest, the stripy thing. So it's and although, like you said, the rest of the cast, they don't get a great deal to do apart from be captured and put in cells and stuff, I think it was probably quite a fun story for them to record, because they do get to dress up and have a bit of fun and pretend that they're working in a bar to get people in the right place and stuff. So there are some fun moments for the rest of the cast. But yeah, I think Hartnell definitely sort of carries this one for me. And I do absolutely love him in it. I think he, as I said, I think he gets some really good moments. He gets to dress up the most as well, and he seems to be really enjoying it. Although, having watched the behind the scenes, which we will get onto, I don't think he was. I mean, because the whole time I was watching this, I was thinking, God, Hartnell seems to be having a blast. I bet he's loving this story. Turns out there's a lot of friction behind behind the scenes making this one, but we'll come on to that in a bit anyway.
Yeah, there wasn't there?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's should we talk about some of the characters, because I think the story-wise, it's, although there's a lot going, it appears like there's a lot going on, there isn't really, is there? It's
No, I think that's the thing. That's why I started to zone out, because once you get into the initial story, which is good, it doesn't have enough meat on the bones to carry through till the end. That's the thing.
Yes, exactly that, mate. Yeah, so essentially Ian and Barbara, at the beginning, they arrive what they think is England in the 1960s. And the Doctor's ready to just hoy Ian and Barbara out.
Yeah, what if he had? I kept thinking that. What if he'd have just, because he's like telling them, isn't he? Off you go then. Yeah. And what if he'd have just left them there? They would have been stranded.
Exactly, mate. Yeah,
he's so careless, the first Doctor.
Away you go. Yeah, it's so I do love that early, that really old first Doctor and second Doctor hum when you're in the console room there. It's, they've got like... Yeah, yes. I love that sound. Anyway, so yeah, he's ready to hoy him out, and they're like, whoa, hold on a minute. This kind of looks like this is the right place, but something doesn't, it kind of feels off, so they investigate a little bit, and quite early on in the story, I think they find some papers, and they come across two guys and figure out that basically they're in France. They're in the middle of the French Revolution, Barbara tells us. And then from that moment on, it's kind of the same. It's that concept, but it's kind of drawn out throughout 3 or 4 episodes. Essentially, they get put in prison, don't they, for traitors? Like they think they're traitors, basically. And they then... The Doctor goes off to investigate something, gets trapped in a burning barn, turns out he's okay at the end, and then goes off.
Good cliffhanger, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good cliffhanger, isn't it? At the end of episode 2, I think. And Ian's in one prison cell, Susan and Barbara get put in another prison cell, and they kind of get caught up in this whole sort of undercover thing that's going on with especially this English spy. What's his name? James Sterling. And, trying to infiltrate the French government and all this stuff. And then it leads basically with Ian escaping, Barbara and Susan going into the these dudes who are part of the revolt. They help him out. The Doctor just pretends to be some highfalutin, French official, hence the uniform and everything that he... There's a really funny scene where he goes into the suit makers, isn't it? And
that's brilliant.
And he's like, well, how much is this? Well, I thought an exchange would be, they swap whatever. And that's it. And so that whole concept is kind of drawn out throughout. There's a bit of evaded capture going on. And there's it's almost Disney-esque in its kind of, we've got the bumbling drunk prison officer who thinks he means well and all that stuff. So that's the story, kind of. There's a couple of little bits in it, but that's essentially it. Character wise, there's quite a decent sized supporting cast, isn't there? There must be about 30 people.
I was going to say, now regular listeners will know that how bad we are with names. I'm just going to say off the cuff, don't expect me to know any of the characters' names in this, because try as I did to keep track of who was who, I hadn't got a clue, apart from Sterling probably. So
that's fair enough, mate. So let's talk about some characters then. So we have a couple of guys that bump into the group fairly early, and then they pop up again. There's a bit of a shootout in the street, and then we see them again later on a bit further down the line. So Susan and Barbara, this is what I was saying earlier about those two being written in a certain way, where when they get rescued later and they go to whoever's house it was, I think it's Jules' house, isn't it? Who's Jules? Jules Renan, played by Donald Morley. They essentially get relegated to cooking and cleaning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Much. So, but those guys were fairly cool, though. So I think that was Who was it that they bump into? So D'Argenson and Rouvray are the two guys. So Neville Smith and Laidlaw Darlings, they pop up a couple of times. Those guys were kind of cool, weren't they? Because we often criticise some supporting cast members in Classic Who for not really buying into the story as much as the principal actors, and you can tell that they're there because they're being paid to be there. It's an acting job. They're not really fired up about the story. But these two guys I thought were pretty sweet. You know, they came across right away as just really cautious about what's going on, really cautious about them being actual traitors. And it's not until later on that they try to convince them that we are from England, but we mean no harm and all the rest of it. And there's a scene actually later on with Ian, which we'll come on to, where he just tells them the truth, that they're time travelers, but you'll get onto that. But yeah, so those two guys, the Argenson and Rouvray, they're in it quite a lot. So what do you reckon to them?
Yeah, I was going to say that they're quite a good little unit, aren't they? I think that's the thing. You kind of suspect what's going on, I think, with them. But yeah, no, most of the supporting cast in this, including them really, are decent, I think. Like you said, I think this is a sort of story where it could have been quite easy to sort of ham it up and do silly French accents and stuff like that. And we don't actually get any of that, do we? It's all played fairly straight, played fairly serious. Those guys were good. They were good. A good little unit.
Good little units. Yeah, they were good. What did you think to the guy, Jules Renan, then? So he played by Donald Morley. He's basically the guy that he's kind of...
he's quite suave.
Suave and high. You can tell he's of money. His house is quite nice and stuff. So he's kind of... It all culminates in his house, actually, at the end of the story, doesn't it? In part 6, it all kind of goes down.
I think that's where it slows up for me, mate, is once we get to his house. I think that's why I was getting a bit bored. I was like, I needed to get out into the revolution or do something, because we're spending a lot of time in this dude's house. And, I mean, most of the animation's set in his house, isn't it? Apart from the cells and stuff, which is probably good for the animators because it probably gave them less work to do. But yeah, I was starting to find it a bit tedious at that point. But the characters, though, that you talk about, I mean, he's good. Like you said, suave, and he's got that air of mystery about him. And again, what was the actor's name? Because he is playing it quite serious as well.
Jules Renan, Donald Morley,
Yeah, he's got a good look as well. It kind of suits the role, if you know what I mean, the dark hair and everything. And
and
I thought he was good casting.
Yeah, and his performance was cool because he had like an air of authority about him, and the way that he delivered his lines was really steady.
Yes,
when some people, when they get animated or they get into it, where it's like a heated discussion with someone or whatever, but he was like really cool. And he delivered his lines at a slightly lower, slower pace than what you would expect. So that was cool. But that last scene, though, in episode 6 was really cool where...
where he's questioning Barbara.
Yeah, so... He overhears... he overhears the conspiracy side of things at the very end, which I think is probably... I could be wrong, but I think overall the most accurate part of the historical where... the guy called Barras, Paul Barras, played by John Law, he's catching the plan, isn't he, to overthrow the government with a young general that's not known in history at that point, which is Napoleon Bonaparte. So those two are hatching the plan, and that's like a nice little, fairly political driven conversation.
Yeah, because he's like, Napoleon as if sort of thing.
Yeah. Because Ian's like, that's Napoleon Bonaparte. And you think, come on, that's not. But then it turns out it is, those conversations and stuff were going on. So that's that last episode, actually. We were saying earlier that this could have been a 4-parter. This all could have been wrapped up really nicely at the end of part 4 with that stuff going on. So anyway.
I'm glad that out of all the episodes to be missing, I think actually episodes 4 and 5 are probably the best. If you're going to have 2 missing, I think they're the best 2 to have missing. Like I wouldn't want the last episode to be the one that we didn't have and that they had to animate, if you know what I mean. Because Yeah, I think the first and last episode are actually really nice, and probably episodes 1, 2, and 6 are great. So I'm glad that they're not the ones that are missing.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the middle chunk, isn't it? Like 3, 4, and 5. So that's what I mean about the animation slightly helping to alleviate, because it just sort of wakes you back up because you're looking at something different. Like you mentioned, the picture quality. Once you get to episode 4 and you're into animation, I think that probably would have been quite a dull episode to watch, but because it's animated, it just is something different, and it kind of woke me back up for a little bit. Unfortunately, by episode 5, I was starting to get bored again, so I was already like, okay, yeah, the animation's decent, but yeah. But I'm glad that episode 6 is in the archives. I wouldn't want that to be missing.
Yeah, no, I think you're right with that, buddy, as well. I think episodes 4 and 5 are a bit more just... in terms of pacing, it really slows down at that point.
It does, yeah.
Because, and that's not any criticism of the animation or anything like that. I mean, it's fairly basic, isn't it? We've seen better animated Doctor Who, but this is not bad. So it's not down to the animation that it's like that. Really, the way that the story pans out from a script perspective is in those 2 episodes, all they're doing is setting up the final act. That's really all that's happening in those 2. Because like you said, it's set mainly in Jules's house, and there's just a lot of it's a lot of conversation, not much in the way of what's going on. So yeah, it's all about so a couple of people have been killed. Jules is reassuring Barbara and Susan, look, we can smuggle you out of France, you have my word that everything's going to be okay, and and all that stuff. And the only sort of intercut bits that are kind of cool is when the Doctor is, sort of trying to win over the prison guard. He's kind of waiting for his moment to... let's talk about those scenes, actually, because there's 2 scenes that are very cool with the Doctor and these 2 characters. So the first one is the Doctor's on his way, completely... minding his own business through the countryside, isn't he?
Yeah, so lovely shots. I believe it's the first location footage in Doctor Who, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, even though it's not Hartnell, is it? It looks like him, but it's not actually Hartnell. It's a Hartnell double, which is a shame, but you'd never know.
Yes, yeah. So, it was the first time that they had gone. So this was across, like, I don't know, somewhere in Buckinghamshire. They found a nice field, and and this is supposedly Paris countryside and whatnot. And in actual fact, they used a double for Hartnell, didn't they, in some of those shots?
That's right. Yeah, it's not him. Yeah,
it's not him at all. But
he's got the walk, though. I'll give him that. He studied it. He's got the walk, but it's not Hartnell. So actually, the guy who doubled as William Hartnell, a guy called Brian Proudfoot, which is a very cool name. He also turned up at the studio recordings as well, so that he could sort of see how William Hartnell moves and try and study his walk and that sort of thing. And apparently this really annoyed William Hartnell at times, because he's fed up with his shadow following him. So we'll come on to Hartnell's he had a bit of a mard on, didn't he? He wasn't a happy chap.
He wasn't, but anyway, this scene's very cool. He's in the countryside and he comes across this guy, and he's like, anyway, nice to meet you, I'm on my way. And the guy gives a bit of grief. He's like, I need to see your papers, to see who you are, that you're legit, you're not a soldier or a traitor or anything like that. Can't produce his papers, so he gets thrown into doing some work, some manual labour. Anyway, the Doctor's way of getting out of that situation is to cause a distraction. First of all, he's like, look up at the moon, we're watching the eclipse, at the sun, sorry, we're watching this eclipse, and it's coming, it's going to be cool. Everyone's because back in the day this was like an amazing thing to witness, and everyone's looking up. So he robs a coin out of his pocket, goes back to his business, plants the coin, and then pretends that he's discovered a gold coin, and there must be more there. So the guy, the work overseer is very greedy, pushes everyone out. I'll be digging for this. I'll be the one getting the coins. Anyway, Hartnell seizes his moment, doesn't he?
God, does he?
He grabs one of the pickaxes and wallop right over the back of the head, and that's his escape. But that whole scene was very, very cool. And did you think that the Doctor had done more harm than insinuated, because it was quite. So they didn't want to show the impact, obviously, because as you mentioned, children watch Doctor Who. So the way they did this was they zoomed in and did a close-up shot of another actor's face who was wincing really badly, like, oh God, you've just walloped him over the head. So do you think that the Doctor had knocked him out, or, shock horror maybe have killed that dude? Because he gives him a fair old swing.
He gives him a fair old whack. I remember the first time watching that, actually being speechless, thinking, "What, the Doctor has just done that?" Because that is what I love about Hartnell's Doctor. You just never know. Like, you wouldn't cross him. He's got a danger element to him. No, I'm not sure, because he does put the coins on his eyes, doesn't he?
Yes.
At the end, which is what you do when someone's dead. But then. Am I right? You hear the guy snoring, don't you? I think, or
that's right. Yeah.
So I think you just assume that he's knocked him out. I think, but I mean, I don't know. The Doctor really does give him a good whack. So I don't know what the Doctor's intentions were.
He does, doesn't he? Though.
Yeah,
Crikey.
but that scene is funny. I mean, it is funny. And it's so, like, something that would not be written now, isn't it? The Doctor whacking someone like that over the head, and you just wouldn't.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about the first Doctor. You can't, he's unpredictable.
He is.
You never know what he'll do next. Do not mess with him.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't he whack somebody with a rock around the head in another story? In the garden?
In The Unearthly Child, isn't it?
Unearthly Child, yeah.
He whacks someone with a big rock.
Yeah, you have to watch
he's
him.
Always whacking people.
Yeah. So that guy, I think that guy, the actor's name was Dallas Carvel, or Dallas Cavell.
Good name.
Yeah, and he's listed either as the roadworks overseer or the chain gang leader.
Oh, right.
But that was such a good scene, and because he has a bit of a nap, doesn't he, and he's snoring, and the Doctor's trying to figure out the escape plan and stuff. So early on in the story, which goes back to what we were saying around the first part of the story is actually okay, but before it slows down, it's got these cool things. And then once the Doctor's left the chain gang, he makes his way to Paris. He gets there, but he's obviously not blending in at all. So he goes to, the suit shop and grabs the outfit and the clothes of a regional officer. I think it's the province officer outfit that he grabs, and that's a lovely scene, isn't it? Where the suitor's like, he's a bit sort of perplexed by the Doctor, because he's thinking, who's this guy about? He looks a bit weird, but then they build up a rapport really quickly. They got this kind of wink at each other, like, don't worry about the money, but I've got this old jacket. And he's like, what do you mean this old thing?
Yeah, I love that. What do you mean old jacket?
Yeah, I'll have and they go off on one, and they make a little pact, and it's almost got like an old comedy feel about it, that scene.
It's a bit of a double act. I was going to say, the Doctor gives him his ring though, and I'm like, don't give him the ring. I love the first Doctor's ring, but he gives it to him, doesn't he?
Yeah, the shoekeeper. Yeah.
And then he betrays him. Then he goes and dobs the Doctor in, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. I thought that was a bit of a dick move, really, because they'd gotten on pretty well at that point. So this is episode 3 now. And, so he gives his clothes, including the ring and stuff like that, gets his regional officer things, the big plumage in the hat and all that stuff. It was just really gutting when he dobbed him in, because you thought, you guys have had you've got some nice some nice garms off the Doctor there, plus the ring. What more do you want?
Yeah, I thought that. I didn't see it coming, though. I must admit, I probably should have, but when he dobbed him in, I was like, oh, no, you little weasel.
You little...
How dare you? But that's the point when it switches to animation, isn't it? So you get sort of an animation reprise of the ring being handed over.
Yeah.
And I just want to quickly touch on the animation, mate, because you've already said you thought it was okay but not great. I thought it was fairly good for the time. I don't know how many stories have been animated up to this point. I feel like this is one of the earlier ones, but I could be completely wrong. I found it very watchable compared to some of the ones we've got today. I mean, I still haven't made it through Fury from the Deep, because I just find the animation just so laborious. I've really struggled to get through that. I haven't finished it. Whereas I was I found the animation decent enough, especially for the time it was done, because I think what they've gone for is the likeness to the characters is fairly good, and I think what they've done is they've just used the same sort of shots over again but made them slightly different. I don't know, but for me it worked quite well. It had the movements were fairly good, like when the characters turn round, like in the animations now they seem to sort of, it's almost like Mr. Ben, isn't it? They just flip like a sort of 2D character, whereas in this they were sort of quite 3D, the animations, like the features on the faces and stuff, and I thought it was pretty good. I mean, not the best animation we've had, but certainly watchable. Certainly better than, I think, some of the newer ones, in terms of I found it watchable, if you know what I mean. I wasn't sat there thinking, God, this is bad. This is really bad.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Did you? It sounds like you weren't overly impressed with it.
50-50.
How would you compare it to what we get now? Because it's very different, isn't it? It's a completely different style of animation to what we've had recently.
Yeah, it's very different. If I remember back to the first time I watched it, for some reason I thought it was really clunky and really staticky, but it wasn't like that really. It was fairly fluid. It was just the range of animation was quite limited. So when the characters are moving, like in some of the more recent animated stories, there's a lot more going on. So you see characters running around, walking, a lot more expressive, I think, is what I'm looking for. Whereas this one, it's just like their eyebrows move a little bit, or their face moves a little bit to the side, and it's a lot more static, but not terrible though. It's obviously very different to what we have now, but I'm kind of 50-50 on it. Like I'd rather have this to watch than the telesnaps and the recons and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think what they've gone for in this animation, which I liked, was that they tried to go for a fairly decent likeness. So you could clearly see Hartnell in that animation and Chesterton and the likeness was there. It was good enough. Whereas I think in some of the recent animations, like I forget which one it was, Polly looked absolutely nothing like Polly. And even Annika Wills, I remember, said it at the BFI. I was quite shocked. She was like, well, I don't know who that's meant to be or something. It's like, and I was thinking, gosh, Annika, the animators are sat in the audience, but she's just saying it how it is, because they've definitely gone away from the likeness. Like I think with some of the Troughton animations we've had recently, he does, they haven't quite got his features right, and it's a very basic version of Troughton's face, whereas watching these animations, I feel like they're more simplistic, but they've tried to make them look more like the characters they're meant to be, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of detail gone into the face, even though the facial expressions are very limited, like you said, to just the Doctor widening in his eyes or an eyebrow raising or whatever. So it's more basic, but I think somehow more detailed, if that makes sense. Yes. Like I could clearly see who the characters were meant to be. I wasn't sat there thinking, wow, that looks nothing like Susan, because it did look like Susan, and it did look like Barbara and so on. So I think that helped. Whereas sometimes with the new animations, I think, well, that looks nothing like so-and-so, I mean, that's just, who's that meant to be? So yeah, not that I'm dissing the recent animations, because some of them have been good, but some of them haven't. So
yes.
Whereas this one I thought was okay. I could tell a bit of effort had gone into it. It's just a bit basic.
Yeah, it was a bit basic, wasn't it?
Yeah. But then the story is, it kind of fitted in with the rest of the story for me, because, there isn't a lot of sets or anything. So it didn't jar too much, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. No, I read you, mate. Yeah. No, I read you. It goes back to what you were saying about those two episodes, that it's set in Jules' house predominantly anyway. Yeah. So, there was never going to be a huge requirement for the animators to do like outside environments too much or any of that stuff. So, yeah. Okay. And then the other cool scenes that the Doctor had was with the jailer, played by Jack Cunningham.
Yeah. Nice scenes.
Yeah. So he was another kind of almost like sort of character you'd see in a Disney film, like, the sort of sidekick, comedic, sort of bumbling character. Do you know what I mean? It's
yes, I know exactly what you mean.
And you can tell that he's a few brain cells short of a whatever, because he drinks a lot, and he just comes across as generally anyway just a bit of a a bit of a buffoon in a way, and yeah, he's easily fooled as well, isn't he? So when the Doctor does turn up in his officer outfit, the Doctor plays that really well. He's like cool as a cucumber and does all that stuff. But that guy, the jailer, you know, bless him. At one point, you thought that he was going to just be severely reprimanded for being a bit of a numpty, but he never does he? He just, you know, I don't know. But he was a very cool character, and you can tell that the chemistry was there between the Doctor and the jailer. So yeah, that guy was cool, Jack Cunningham.
Yes, I was going to say he's played. It's a nice characters. I like when we get that in terms of they got that comedic edge to them, but that they are quite fun. I think it's the only thing I don't like is actually really his very first scene when he tries it on with Barbara, because that's a bit it's a bit sleazy, and I think, oh, that's a shame. But I think that's because of the time, though, that, you know, we used to get stuff like that, unfortunately, in a lot of TV shows where they try it on with the ladies and stuff. And I thought, oh, that's a shame, because that's one of the first things he does, and Barbara quickly puts him right. But apart from that one bit, yes, every other scene he's in, he's quite fun to watch. And it's a nice performance. The actor totally suits the role, and he knows exactly what he's doing in that role, if you know what I mean. He knows exactly the character he wants to play and how he wants to play it. So yes, he's fun. And like you said, the scenes opposite Hartnell were great. Yeah, very cool. So yes, he's a fun character. Just don't like that first scene when he tries it on with Barbara, but yeah.
Yes, I agree. Yeah,
I'm just very protective of Barbara.
Yes. Before we get on to the principal dudes a little bit more, just very quickly, there was another guy that he was like the top dude that you would see out of all of the French sort of political dudes. He was the top guy, wasn't he? His name was Robespierre, so Maximilian.
Yeah, Robespierre.
Yeah, played by Keith Anderson. He was there really to kind of, what's the word? To try and show that, as well as the people who are revolting against the French politicians, he was there to show that actually these guys are going to be more than a handful. And he was like one of the top dogs sort of thing, but he was very official in a way that he delivered his stuff. Obviously knew what he was doing, was in Dixon Dock Green, was in Z Cars, knew how to chew the wood in front of a camera and stuff. So but he was okay though. He was pretty cool.
No, he was good. Yeah.
Right, what say thee on Carol Ann Ford in this one then, as Susan? Because bless her, you know, how should we write Susan in this one? Should we give her a good meaty side quest stuff to do? We haven't got time for that. Just make her ill. Just make her sick. Bless her.
You got to feel sorry for her.
Yeah, not the best story for Susan, eh?
No, not at all. It's a real shame, actually, because this is the last story of season 1, isn't it? And so, it's a shame. Susan is such a interesting character, and the writers never seem to know what to do with her. She always seems to get sidelined. You know, she's either ill or tripping over a rock or twisting her ankle, or I don't know. Poor old Susan, she gets a rough ride, and I can totally see why Carol Ann Ford got fed up and said, you know, you're not giving me anything to do and I'm off. I can see why she left. And this is a prime example, because but she doesn't really get anything to do, even at the start. I mean, as I said, I loved episode 1, and she's getting all upset that Barbara and Ian are leaving, and it kind of reminds me of that relationship they had when they very first go in the TARDIS, how alien and cold the Doctor is towards them. Off you go then. And Susan's pleading with him, oh, Doctor, you know. So, yeah, even that, she's sort of really just not getting a lot to work with. So yeah, I feel sorry for Carol Ann Ford, really. It's not a great story for Susan at all. She doesn't get anything to do other than be ill and be carted around on the back of a horse cart, which jolts, by the way. Do you notice how those poor actors, when it goes into the studio, the horse sort of stops and then starts jolting forward again, and oh dear. Yes, I just feel sorry for her. She gets nothing to do at all. And apparently even the director had a go at her when she does get something to do. She had a bit of a to-do with the director as well. She says on the making of, she's trying to act and he's saying, oh, you're too maudlin. And she's like, well, of course I am. I'm in a cell with rats and I'm ill, and what do you want me to be? You know, she wasn't happy on, don't be so maudlin, he said to her. She wasn't particularly happy recording this, and I can see why.
Yeah. There was a few unhappy moments, wasn't there, with filming this one. We'll come on to Hartnell, who I think he was like the ringleader in showing his disdain for a certain director.
Yes.
On this story. But Ian and Barbara then, William Russell and Jacqueline Hill. As I mentioned at the beginning, I think I've definitely enjoyed them in other stories, mate, other than this one. They were okay, don't get me wrong. But in the same way that Susan was written to just be, like a sort of fade into the background, Barbara wasn't as bad as that, but she...
Almost, yeah.
She just didn't have as much meat on the bones in terms of how the character was written into the story, but also Jacqueline Hill's performance. It just felt a little bit lackluster and a little bit in the background, but not as much as Susan. And then Ian was very cool again, as you'd expect, but yeah, just not. I don't know, just not as meaty as you'd see in other stories, really. So not too bad, those two, but yeah, I've definitely seen them do way more, and I've also enjoyed them more in other stories.
Absolutely agree, because I love both the characters. Well, I love all three of the characters, to be honest. I love this TARDIS team, but yeah, again, I can't really think of any standout moment for any of the TARDIS team, if I'm honest. Not even Ian, and that's unusual, because Ian normally gets stuck in there, and we normally get some good scenes of him. But I know that William Russell was on holiday for some of this story, and I think they pre-filmed some scenes, didn't they, on film to insert in, which is why you get some very sort of odd talking to camera shots of from him and whoever he's supposed to be talking to. So yeah, maybe that impacted it. But it is a shame, because you've got three, I think, great characters there, and you've got 6 episodes to give them something to do, and they pretty much don't do anything. They get the odd bit to do, like the bar scene at the end, but yeah, the only thing I think they would have enjoyed in this story is getting to dress up differently, and that was probably fun for them. But yeah, it's not a good story for them, which is a shame, because it is all pretty much the Doctor, which I love, because it's nice to see Bill getting all that to do, and he does it really well. But yeah, to actually sacrifice the other characters for that is a shame, because there's plenty they could have done, I'm sure.
Yeah,
you got 6 episodes, for goodness sake. You know what I mean? They could have had more to do. No,
I agree, buddy.
Yeah,
they could have had a bit more. Yeah. Okay, and then old Bill Hartnell then as a Doctor. I really liked him in this one, buddy. I thought he just showed a real swing between being sort of frustrated with like being accused as a traitor, and then that chain gang on the road puts him to work, and then the shoe keeper with the clothes and stuff, and then in the jail, and then in Jules's house later on. He just seems to have a load of stuff to do that he's like the key moments in the story he's involved in. And then that cool cliffhanger as well, where he's trapped in the barn and it's on fire. You think, wow, clearly the Doctor's not going to die, but how is he going to get out of this sort of thing? And yeah, so he has I think William Hartnell has a really good story in this one, because in some of the other First Doctor stories we've reviewed, it's been a mix of, yeah, he's okay, but he's buggered off on holiday for 2 episodes out of the 4, and it's down to Ian and Barbara to almost carry it a little bit and stuff like that. But I don't know, in this one it's the reverse for me. He's really involved in it a lot, and you can tell he's loving the story. And it's really weird, because you can see that once the director's yelled action and he's doing his thing, he's really into it and he's cool. But there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, wasn't there, with William Hartnell and and the director Henrik Hirsch, because I think it stems from Hartnell essentially being like William Hartnell just didn't respect him as a director. That's the long and short of it. And so there was a lot of tension there, and I think Henrik Hirsch really wanted to try and adopt a different way of making Doctor Who, where he would film things out of order, and then put them together and edit them later, which sort of threw people off a little bit. And yeah, it was just all over the place. So yeah, So what do you reckon to Hartnell's performance, but then what was going on behind the scenes, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hartnell it's a great story for Hartnell. In complete contrast to the rest of the TARDIS team that we've just talked about, Hartnell is the opposite. He gets loads to do. He does it all well as well. That's the thing. He's great in every scene that he's in, even with the odd little fluff, and not that many fluffs actually from Hartnell in this, surprisingly. He gets the odd one, but he manages to sail through it, and I think he's really, I was going to say he's relishing in everything he gets to do, but you're right. When you hear about the stuff behind the scenes, I think Henrik was a very inexperienced director and didn't really, with Doctor Who, because it's such a tight schedule and they've only got a limited time to get it in the can and get it done, because of his inexperience, that caused a lot of frustrations, because even Carol Ann Ford said, even she was getting frustrated with Henrik because he didn't really know what he was doing when it comes to like camera scripts and stuff, and it was very frustrating because there was a lot of unorganization going on. It wasn't very well organized, and so you can imagine Bill's not used to that. He's just not having it, and as soon as Carol Ann Ford says, as soon as he's realizes someone's out of their depth, he hasn't really got time for them, so he's not going to take directions from a director that he thinks doesn't know what they're doing. Basically, that's what Hartnell was like. So he would sort of shoo him away, like, oh, leave me alone, I know how to do it, I know what buttons to press. And it got very, very fraught between William Hartnell and the director, and then the stress got to the director because suddenly, I don't know how far they'd got, I think episode 4, suddenly halfway through production, everything stopped, and people were rushing up to the gallery, and poor old Henrik had collapsed, and an ambulance was rushed to get him, and it was he'd basically had a sort of breakdown, and it was exhaustion, I think, and so he couldn't direct the next couple of episodes. They had to get somebody else in, and there's a mystery because no one can remember who. It's so odd. Like there's names been thrown in the hat, but no one actually knows who completed this story. I think Henrik might have come back for the... Yes, he did come back. He did, because they said that Bill, he could be ferocious, but once he realised the seriousness of it, everybody says he literally reined it in completely, and they got it done, and Bill just was, completely the opposite to Henrik, knew that things had gone too far, and just, was like, almost like the golden child, couldn't have been better for the rest of the production. But yes, it reached a boiling point halfway through, and it was just chaotic, apparently. But Carol Ann Ford said it was mainly just because he was so inexperienced. He didn't really know what he was doing as a director, and you just can't really have that on Doctor Who at this time because, it's a difficult show to make, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to fall apart. And somebody like William Hartnell is just not going to stand for that, So, it reached boiling point. Somebody else came in and directed a couple of episodes. Nobody seems to know who. Verity Lambert was brought in to sort of oversee it and sort it all out, which she did. And then Henrik come back from hospital and finished it off and everything. All the cast got on with him fine, and it was in the can. But, quite a fraught production, it seems. Even the rehearsals were a nightmare. They said that Carol Ann Ford said they were rehearsing in this old hall, and it was there was holes in the roof, so there was buckets all over the floor, dripping water in, and they were sort of trying to act around these buckets of dripping water. She just said the whole thing was just a nightmare. You've got a horse coming on the set and pooing all over the floor for those scenes when they're on the back of a real horse. She said there was just so many things in this production that just made it difficult, and then poor old Henrik obviously collapsing in the middle of it. It just sounds, a nightmare, really. And Verity Lambert obviously in the midst of it trying to sort it all out. But they got it in the can, and I think when you watch Hartnell, I just think he's on top of his game, really. I think he's fantastic in this, and I don't think you'd really know any of this stuff. You wouldn't sort of guess.
You wouldn't, would you?
No more than normal, because we know Hartnell could be a bit, frictious, but you wouldn't sort of think all of that was going on behind the scenes watching it, I don't think, because he's terrific in it. There's no two ways about it. He's terrific in it, from the very first scene when he's getting grumpy with Barbara and Ian, to the bit where he's clobbering Matey over the head, to the to the scenes of the jailer at the end, to the outfit, to the scene in the shop with the clothes, everything. He gets so many good moments, you know. He, as I said earlier, for me, he carries the story. Like, if I was going to rewatch this again, it would be because of those scenes. They're the bits I'd be putting the DVD in to watch again because, he carries the story for me. He's superb in it.
Yeah, agreed, buddy. Yeah. It's a strange old thing that with behind the scenes as well, because when Henrik became ill and collapsed and had to be taken away, Verity Lambert and her assistant, production assistant, Timothy Coombe, they were well, we can't run a studio, we can't do this. So they drafted in a replacement. And Timothy Coombe thinks or says it was a guy called John Gorrie. And John Gorrie was a director on The Keys of Marinus. But when John Gorrie was interviewed about this, he was like, I've no recollection at all of directing this episode. So he was like, I could have done, but I honestly don't remember doing that, which is really weird.
Yeah.
And so it's just strange, isn't it? There's this kind of black hole surrounding that behind the scenes. I mean, surely somebody like, I don't know, Ian Chesterton or Caroline Ford, William Russell, would know, you know, who was directing them, you know, back in that time. I find
it really odd that not one of them can remember, especially the director, because you would think if you were called in at the last minute, that would stick in your mind, surely, of, oh gosh, yes, I remember when that director was taken to hospital and I had to step in. That's not something you would forget that quickly. And the fact that none of the actors can remember it either, it is odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an anomaly. Is that the word? Anomaly?
An anomaly, yeah. And somebody also said that if it wasn't John Gorrie, then it was one of the associate producers, Mervyn Pinfield. But then he doesn't remember either.
Oh, God.
So it's like it's black hole around episode.
So odd.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And I think towards the end, it kind of evened itself out. So one of the main complaints that Henrik had around filming was at Lime Grove. It was really small and cramped and condensed, and he wasn't comfortable. But then when they moved it to Television Centre, he was a bit more happier and it was a nicer environment. And I think, so it's written anyway, that Hartnell eased up on him a little bit and was a bit more considerate and stuff. So by episodes 5 and 6, apparently, it was a bit nicer and stuff like that. But yeah, like you said, you'd never know that, because you can tell, can't you, sometimes with some actors when something's not going right. Because we had this a lot with Tom Baker when he fell out with Annika, what's her name? Sorry.
Louise Jameson.
Louise Jameson, sorry. With her especially. And then when he got married to
Lala
Ward, when those two had a ruck in the morning and then they went to... you could tell in his performance that he was not happy.
Yes.
But with Hartnell, you'd never know. All the unhappy feelings and stress and everything. He was a true professional, wasn't he? So... Yeah, definitely. Very cool. So yeah, love Hartnell on this one. What else is there? Righty. Music, very quickly for me. Really old school music for this one. Lots of just classical old flutes and stuff like that. So Stanley Myers, who was doing the score for this one. Lovely score, really of its time. It sounds to me really like a really old black and white movie from the 50s. Rather than a 60s TV show, like a science fiction show. But anyway, still pleasant enough, very cool, no big annoying weird electronic sounds. We're not Dudley Simpsoning this thing too much. And yeah, it was not too bad, dude.
Yeah, no, I think the music's fine. It's not too intrusive. I thought it was quite nice in this one, actually. Yeah, it's got a nice feel to it.
Yeah.
It suits the story. Yep.
Anything else on your notes, buddy?
No, just that I like the fact that they reference a couple of other stories in it. So the Aztecs is mentioned, and I think there's a couple of other stories that Barbara sort of references back to. She's like, oh, that's a bit like when we did that in. And I thought, that's nice just to have a bit of continuity for series 1. I think it happens 2 or 3 times, actually, which is nice. I noticed the TARDIS has no sound effects when it lands, which always throws me off. I think it's weird how it just appears, and it's just the hum. Like you said about that lovely hum, but there's no whooshing sound, which is strange. I don't know why. But no, my only other note really is I like the last scene, and I guess because it was the last story of season 1, they wanted to put a nice little speech at the end. So I love it that we got the Doctor, Ian and Barbara and Susan just sat round getting changed, laughing like friends do. And the Doctor says that nice thing about our destiny is in the stars.
It's lovely, isn't it?
It's a lovely ending, that. Yeah, I really like that. As I said, I'm sure it's just to cap off season 1. And obviously they knew there was season 2 because it comes up with the caption Planet of Giants next. So I don't know how long the gap was, but they'd obviously already got it.
It had already been planned in and stuff, yeah.
Already planned, I assume, because, it come up with the caption. So, it's just a lovely ending. I love that bit about Destiny and the Stars. It's, it's nicely delivered by Hartnell. Yeah,
because you see a shot of the of some stars, and then it fades out as he's talking and stuff. Yeah, it's a lovely little moment, that. Yeah, I've forgotten
Actually,
about
there
that.
was only a couple of months. So this finished in September 64, this episode. And then episode 1 of Planet of the Giants come out in October 64. So it's quite strange to call them season 1 and 2 because there's not that much of a gap. But anyway,
it's already done, and
there you go. Yeah.
I might track down the Target book of this, because I think it will open up a little bit more, and it'll be a more cohesive story, I think, to read it rather than sort of the disjointed and poor quality TV show, which I'll probably end up watching it again at some point. But because the book was written by Ian Marter.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine he would do a good job with this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So old Harry Sullivan putting his author chops down. So and interesting that we haven't got any Terrence Dicks on this one. But even so, I might track down the book, dude, because it was a hardback years ago, and then Target brought their version out. So no other notes for me, dude, on this one.
No.
Let's get to score, shall we? Right, it's you to go first, buddy. What are you saying?
It is. I'm going to go over 7 out of 10. Maybe 7 out of 10. I just think it's a good historical. I think Hartnell's superb in it. It does drag in the middle, so maybe I'm going slightly too high, but that's what I wrote. So let's go with that. 7 out of 10.
Nice, buddy. Cool. I'm going to go with a 7 as well.
Oh, you are? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think most of that score, to be honest with you, is for Hartnell.
Yeah.
Just because I love him in this story. Is such a great performance from him. But also I like some of the supporting characters, like those 2 guys that pop up at the beginning, that sort of are in it sort of towards the end pretty much. Those 2 guys, Rouvray and D'Argenson, it just really sort of nails immediately what the tone of the story is, and those 2 guys sort of fit the bill perfectly for that. And then the jailer's funny, and those other scenes with Hartnell. So I think it's a decent enough watch. It's just crying out for somebody to hand in some recordings they've got somewhere that are better quality, and to
hopefully
get it done.
They'll spruce it up for the Blu-ray. I'm sure they can improve it now.
Indeedy. Yeah, hopefully. Yes. Okay then, so 7s all round from us. What do our listeners think? So over on the Twitter, our writer Jordan Shortman says, I quite like this one as a history buff, but I like the pure historicals in Hartnell's era. But the animation lets it down a little bit. But the story is decent in a genuinely precarious period of history. The main cast is fantastic, and the First Doctor seems so happy to club that man on the head.
He does.
Will Sanger says, Will Sanger says, it's probably a bit too long, all things considered, and has some padding in places, but I really like this one. It has a brutality and cruelty to it, showing the horrific punishments of the guillotine and great terror which Barbara and Susan are put through, thrust into the conflict. Paul Jobbo says, first ever season finale. The first half of the story is all capture and escape, but it ends up an intense and great story. Is the tailor in episode 3 the first person to own a Doctor Who outfit?
Oh,
he probably is.
Good shout, yeah.
He will be, yeah.
He's on eBay.
First use of location film or filming, Hartnell at his best. 8 cackling hags out of 10. Do you remember those hanging out the window?
Yes, yeah. Cackling hag.
David Kitchen says, it's not bad, but it falls below the other Hartnell historicals for a lack of proper villain to drive the plot. There's no Tegan or Taloxical or El Akir. That's very true, but, You know. And lastly on Twitter, Sarah Louise, the running Whovian, says, an interesting story, particularly with the French Revolution setting. The animations were hard to follow, but we're fortunate to have them. The first Doctor seemed in his element, and we saw strong performances from all except Susan, who I found very frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
And Sarah gives it a 7.5.
Oh, cool. Cheers, Sarah.
And then a few over on Facebook. Toby Coleman says, despite watching it only a few days ago, I can barely remember it. Oh. I remember liking the cast and the setting and quite like the music. I must be one of the few people who don't mind the animation style. I just don't remember the plot, apart from it being quite repetitive, which is a shame. A 6 out of 10.
6, okay.
Yes, one of our other writers, Harry, says, I watched this one on Christmas Eve and just gone as part of my marathon. It was terrific viewing. Terrifying, epic, and full of great character moments. Shame about the strange animations and some of the historical context getting lost, but it's a great first season finale all the same. 8.83.
Very 10. Precise.
Thanks, Harry. And lastly, Charlie Turner says, great first 3 episodes, but the rest of it crumbles into pieces. As I found Planet 55's first attempt at animating the missing episodes to be very creepy. I was just sat there asking myself when I was watching it, what am I seeing here? The Walking Dead? ? Fortunately, they got a lot better with the gaps of the 10th planet and the moon base. They did, actually, to be fair.
Oh, yeah, moon base is good.
Yeah, an okay story overall. 5 out of 10.
Fair enough.
A 5, yes. So that's I think the score on average is probably about a 7 for this buddy. Maybe a 6.5, but let's go with a 7. Let's be generous.
Yeah.
So that was the Reign of Terror. 7s all round, and then an average on the old socials of a 7. What have we got next week, buddy?
Next week, we'll be drifting back to some 4th Doctor action with the android invasion.
Ah.
Yeah.
We just mentioned Mr. Baker. So, yeah, the android invasion. What series is this? This must be quite early on, though. His second?
Sarah's in it, isn't she? So, is 13, is it?
It's his first or second series, I think. Yeah. So, yeah, the android invasion, that'll be good next week. And I think we'll wrap there, buddy, for episode 375.
Alrighty.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Big Blue Box podcast. That was 375. Thank you so much to our listeners who sent your scores and mini reviews for the Reign of Terror. Thank you very much. As Adam said, next week it's the 4th Doctor story, the android invasion. So get BritBox fired up or your DVDs out for that. Give that a watch because we'll be asking for your thoughts as always. In the meantime, make sure you are following or subscribing to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We put a new episode out every single Friday, so you don't want to miss that. And you can also listen for free over on the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. While you're there, you can also check out the amazing reviews and editorials from our amazing writing team. You heard from 2 of them in the reviews, Harry and Jordan, and then we've got Maria, Mark and Matt as well. So, and Harry, go and check all of the articles out. They're very, very cool. We're on the socials too, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and Mastodon. There are links on the website. Give us a like and a follow over there as we chat Doctor Who, and we have a very cool free Discord server, so hop in there and chat Doctor Who with lots of other very cool Who fans. As I mentioned earlier, don't forget to remember to go and check out Adam's YouTube channel. It's called The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag, yes. Go and check out my channel. Lots of Doctor Who vids and all sorts on there. Also on the socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Indeed, yes. So go and check out Adam's stuff. Loads of cool stuff. Get a drink, get comfy. And Adam's on the socials too, as he said. Go and stalk him and say hello over there. Alrighty, until next week for 376. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember,